I never thought the worst day of my life would come in the form of a text message. "We need to talk," from my fiancée Olivia at 3 a.m. was concerning enough. But nothing prepared me for sitting across from her and my brother Derek at my parents' kitchen table the next morning. "I am pregnant," she said, eyes fixed on the floor, "and Derek is the father." My brother, my only sibling, the best man at my upcoming wedding, reached for her hand as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "We did not mean for this to happen," he explained, "but we have real feelings for each other. We want to get married." 2 months before my wedding, the two people I trusted most had not only betrayed me in the worst possible way, but now wanted my blessing for their new life together. Before I tell you how I responded to this unimaginable betrayal, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to rebuild your life after someone you loved shattered your trust. To understand the full impact of this betrayal, I need to take you back to the beginning. Derek is 2 years younger than me, and throughout our childhood we were inseparable. Growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, we shared everything: sports teams, friend groups, summer jobs, and eventually a cramped apartment in Philadelphia when we both attended college there. Despite occasional sibling rivalry, our bond had always felt unbreakable, the kind of relationship that defined the word brother in its truest sense. "You guys are like the same person split in two," our mother would often say, proud of the close connection her sons maintained, even as adults. We did have our differences, of course. I was always the more responsible one, planning ahead and building toward goals methodically. Derek was charismatic and spontaneous, drawing people to him effortlessly with his quick humor and seemingly boundless confidence. While I worked through college with steadfast determination, Derek changed majors 3 times, took a year off to find himself in Costa Rica, and generally approached life as if everything would always work out in his favor. Somehow it usually did. After graduation, I pursued a career in engineering, securing a stable position with a respected firm and establishing myself professionally. Derek bounced between jobs in sales, bartending, and eventually real estate, where his natural people skills helped him achieve surprising success despite his lack of consistent effort. I admired his ability to connect with others so easily while he claimed to envy my stability and focus. "You always know exactly what you want," he told me during one late-night conversation. "I wish I had that kind of clarity." I met Olivia 3 years ago at a charity fundraiser organized by my company. She was volunteering at the registration table, her warm smile and genuine interest in each person making an immediate impression on me. With dark hair that fell in natural waves and eyes that crinkled at the corners, when she laughed, she was beautiful in an approachable, unassuming way that perfectly matched her personality. Our connection was immediate and deep. On our first date, a simple coffee that extended into dinner because neither of us wanted the conversation to end, I discovered she was pursuing a master's degree in education while teaching 3rd grade full-time. Her dedication to her students and her thoughtful approach to every aspect of her life resonated with my own values. "I believe we are shaped by all our interactions," she told me that night. So I try to make each one meaningful. Over the following months, Olivia became integrated into every aspect of my life, including my close relationship with Derek. Initially, they seemed to enjoy a typical future-in-law relationship, friendly but not particularly close. Olivia appreciated Derek's humor and energy in social settings, while Derek expressed approval of my choice in a partner. "She is perfect for you, bro," he said after their first meeting. "Smart, pretty, and somehow able to tolerate your obsessive planning." When I proposed to Olivia on our 2nd anniversary, Derek was the first person I called with the news. He insisted on hosting an engagement party at his condo, inviting our extended family and mutual friends to celebrate. Throughout the evening, I noticed him pulling Olivia into conversation whenever she was alone, something I attributed to his effort to make her feel welcome in the family. The wedding planning process brought our 3 lives into even closer orbit. Derek volunteered to help with vendor meetings when my work schedule became overwhelming, accompanying Olivia to tastings and venue visits I could not attend. Looking back, I can identify dozens of warning signs in their increasing comfort with each other, private jokes I wasn't part of, and the subtle shift in room dynamics whenever they were together. At the time, however, I interpreted these changes as positive signs that my fiancé and brother were developing the kind of friendship that would strengthen our family bonds for years to come. 8 months into our engagement, with the wedding date set and deposits paid, my company assigned me to a major project in Chicago. The 3-month assignment came with significant career advancement opportunities, and both Olivia and Derek encouraged me to accept it despite the timing. "We have everything under control here," Olivia assured me. "Derek has been amazing with helping finalize the remaining details. I will take care of everything Derek promised. Just focus on crushing this project." I left for Chicago with complete trust in the two people I loved most, calling and texting daily, but otherwise fully immersed in the demanding work. When I returned home 6 weeks later for a long weekend visit, I noticed subtle changes in Olivia's behavior, a slight hesitation before embracing me, a distracted quality in her responses to questions about wedding plans. Derek, too, seemed different, unusually subdued in my presence, and making excuses to leave whenever the three of us were together. "Is everything okay with you and Derek?" I asked Olivia, after he abruptly departed a dinner I had arranged at our favorite restaurant. "Of course," she replied quickly. "He is just busy with work and giving us space to reconnect." I accepted this explanation, attributing my unease to the strain of separation and the pressure of the approaching wedding. 1 week later, I returned to Chicago to complete the final phase of the project, entirely unaware that my life was about to implode completely. The text from Olivia came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, jolting me from sleep in my sterile corporate apartment. "We need to talk. Can you come home this weekend? It is important." My immediate thought was that something had happened with the wedding plans, perhaps a venue cancellation or vendor issue that required my presence. When I called her back immediately, the call went straight to voicemail. A series of increasingly concerned messages went unanswered throughout the day, my anxiety growing with each passing hour. By evening, I had booked a flight home for the following morning, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios that still fell laughably short of the reality awaiting me. I arrived at our apartment to find it empty, with a note from Olivia asking me to meet her at my parents' house. This request struck me as odd, since my parents were vacationing in Florida and had lent Derek their key to water plants. The significance of the location would soon become painfully clear. Walking into my childhood home, I found Olivia and Derek sitting together at the kitchen table, an untouched pot of coffee between them. The moment I saw their expressions, a cold certainty settled in my stomach before any words were spoken. "I am pregnant," Olivia said, after I sat down, her voice barely above a whisper. "And Derek is the father." The words seemed to hang in the air, incomprehensible, despite their clarity. I looked between them, waiting for some indication that this was an elaborate, cruel joke. Instead, I saw my brother reach for my fiancé's hand, their fingers intertwining with practiced familiarity. "We did not mean for this to happen," Derek said, his tone suggesting he was discussing a minor inconvenience rather than the complete devastation of my life. "But we have real feelings for each other. We want to get married." What followed was a surreal conversation that I experienced, as if from a distance, their words reaching me through a thick fog of shock and disbelief. They had first slept together 3 weeks after I left for Chicago, a night of drinks after a cake-tasting appointment that had just happened. What began as a mistake evolved into regular meetings, justified as trying to understand their feelings while I was focused on my career hundreds of miles away. "We were going to tell you after the Chicago project ended," Olivia explained, tears finally appearing now that the confession was complete. "We never wanted to hurt you. But the pregnancy changed things," Derek added. "We cannot hide anymore. We need to move forward honestly." Their version of honesty included not just confessing the affair and pregnancy, but expressing their desire to build a life together with my blessing. Derek explained that they wanted to handle this like adults and hoped I could eventually be part of the child's life as an uncle. Olivia returned my grandmother's engagement ring, placing it on the table between us, like a period at the end of a sentence. Throughout their explanation, I remained silent, my mind struggling to process the magnitude of this betrayal. These were the two people I had trusted above all others, who had encouraged me to take the Chicago assignment, who had spent months deceiving me while planning a future together at my expense. Every memory of our relationships was now cast in a different light. Every moment of happiness contaminated by the knowledge of what would follow. When they finally fell silent waiting for my response, I found myself capable of only one question. How could you? The simplicity of these 3 words seemed to catch them off guard. They had prepared for anger, for shouting, perhaps even for forgiveness, but not for the quiet devastation contained in my question. "We never planned this," Derek repeated, as if the lack of premeditation somehow mitigated their actions. "Sometimes feelings just develop. We tried to fight it," Olivia added, "but we couldn't deny what was happening between us." Their justifications focused entirely on their feelings, with minimal acknowledgement of the pain they had caused, revealed a selfishness that was almost more shocking than the betrayal itself. In that moment, I realized that any response I gave would be inadequate to express the depth of my hurt or penetrate their self-absorbed narrative. I stood and walked out without another word, ignoring their calls to talk this through and find closure. In my car, I sat motionless for nearly an hour, staring at my parents' house where the 3 of us had shared countless family dinners and celebrations, now forever tainted by this conversation. The days that followed passed in a blur of practical necessities. I called the wedding venue and vendors to cancel arrangements, refusing Derek's offer to handle these tasks. I arranged for Olivia to collect her belongings from our apartment while I was at work, avoiding another confrontation I knew would resolve nothing. I declined calls from mutual friends, seeking explanations, unwilling to engage in the inevitable gossip that would follow once the situation became public knowledge. My parents returned from their vacation to the news of their son's fractured relationship and their future daughter-in-law's pregnancy with their younger son's child. Their reactions reflected their distinct personalities, my father retreating into stunned silence while my mother attempted to mediate an impossible situation. "Families can overcome anything, if there is enough love," she insisted during one painful phone call. "In time, you might all find a way to coexist." Her well-meaning but misguided attempt to preserve some semblance of family unity only deepened my sense of isolation. While everyone around me seemed focused on adapting to the new reality, I remained frozen in the moment of discovery, unable to comprehend how my life had derailed so completely. 1 week after the revelation, with cancellation fees paid and possession of the apartment settled, I took emergency leave from work and drove to a remote cabin in the Pocono Mountains owned by a college friend. The solitude offered the first opportunity to fully process what had happened without the pressure of others' expectations or needs. For 3 days, I barely ate or slept, alternating between periods of numbing emptiness and overwhelming anger. I re-examined every interaction between Derek and Olivia, searching for signs I had missed or warnings I had ignored. I drafted and deleted dozens of messages to them, both ranging from cold denunciations to desperate pleas for explanations that might make sense of their betrayal. On the 4th day, during a long hike through the surrounding forest, a strange clarity began to emerge from the chaos of my emotions. The question shifted from, "How could they do this to me?" to, "Who do I want to be in response to what they've done?" This subtle but significant reframing offered the first glimpse of a path forward that didn't depend on their personas, remorse, or understanding. I returned to Philadelphia with a tentative plan, focused entirely on my own healing rather than their relationship. I would set clear boundaries, seek professional support, and begin the process of rebuilding my life independently of the narrative they had created. This approach was tested immediately upon my return, as Derek appeared at my door, unannounced, ostensibly to check on me, but clearly seeking absolution. "I know you need time," he said, standing awkwardly in the entryway. I refused to invite him past, but we are brothers. That has to count for something eventually. It counted for something, I replied, the calm in my voice surprising us both. It counted for everything. That is why this happened. Because I trusted you completely. "I never meant to hurt you," he insisted, repeating the refrain that had lost all meaning. "It just happened. Things don't just happen, Derek. People make choices. You and Olivia made choices over and over again, knowing exactly what they would do to me. Now, I am making my choice." Which is what he asked, genuine concern, finally breaking through his self-justification. to prioritize myself for once. I won't be attending family events where you and Olivia are present. I won't be participating in group conversations about the pregnancy or your relationship. I won't be pretending that what you did is something I can or should forgive right now. His expression revealed his surprise at both my composure and the finality of my decision. He had expected either continuing rage or reluctant forgiveness, the two responses that had characterized our conflict resolutions throughout childhood. This measured boundary setting represented a version of me he didn't recognize. "Mom and Dad are hoping we can all have dinner next week," he said, testing the boundary immediately. "To talk things through, as a family. You can tell them what I've told you. I'm not available for that conversation." After Derek left, I scheduled an appointment with a therapist, recognizing that professional support would be essential to navigate this trauma without allowing it to define my future. The initial sessions were painful but productive, providing space to express the full range of emotions I had been containing for others' comfort. The greatest challenge after betrayal, my therapist explained, during one particularly difficult session, is avoiding the tendency to either fully internalize the pain as evidence of your unworthiness or to externalize it entirely as simple villainy on their part. The truth is usually more complex than either extreme. This perspective helped me begin the difficult work of separating my self-worth from their actions, recognizing that while I couldn't control what had happened, I could control how it shaped my future. I established a routine focused on physical and emotional well-being, returning to activities I had enjoyed before the relationship and exploring new interests that had always intrigued me. 2 months after the revelation, the date that would have been our wedding day arrived. Rather than isolating myself with the pain of what might have been, I volunteered at a community garden project, spending the day creating something new and beautiful in collaboration with others. The symbolic value of the activity wasn't lost on me, but more important was the genuine sense of peace I experienced while working with my hands in the soil, fully present in the moment, rather than trapped in the past. That evening, I received a text from Olivia, the first direct communication since our conversation at my parents' house. "Thinking of you today," it read. "I hope you are finding some peace." The message, likely sent with good intentions, demonstrated how completely she had failed to understand the magnitude of her actions. To her, this was already history, something to be acknowledged and moved beyond. To me, it remained a present reality I was still learning to navigate. I did not respond to the message, maintaining the boundary I had established for my own protection. This decision represented a significant change from my previous pattern of prioritizing others' comfort over my own needs, a pattern that both Derek and Olivia had exploited throughout our relationships. As weeks became months, I developed a clearer understanding of the dynamics that had contributed to the betrayal. While nothing justified their actions, I could recognize how my tendency to trust completely without questioning, my willingness to sacrifice my needs for others, and my avoidance of conflict had created an environment where taking advantage of me seemed somehow acceptable. This insight wasn't about blaming myself for their choices, but about identifying patterns I needed to change to protect myself in future relationships. The work was difficult and ongoing, with setbacks and moments of overwhelming grief for what had been lost. Yet gradually, almost imperceptibly, the acute pain began to transform into something more manageable, a scar rather than an open wound. 1 year after discovering the betrayal, I found myself in a place I couldn't have imagined during those first dark days. I had accepted a promotion that required relocating to Seattle, a city I had always been drawn to, but had never seriously considered because of Olivia's ties to Philadelphia. The move represented not just professional advancement, but a conscious choice to create distance from the constant reminders of what had happened. My relationship with my family had evolved into something new and more carefully bounded. I maintained regular contact with my parents through calls and occasional visits when Derek and Olivia were not present. These interactions were initially strained by unspoken tensions, but gradually became more comfortable as my parents recognized and respected the boundaries I had established. "I am proud of how you have handled this," my father told me during his first visit to my Seattle apartment. "Not many people could find their way through something like this with such dignity." His acknowledgement, the first clear indication that my parents understood the magnitude of what had occurred, helped heal some of the secondary wounds created by their initial attempts to maintain family unity at all costs. While our relationship would never return to what it had been before, we were finding a new connection based on mutual respect rather than obligation or habit. Derek and Olivia had married in a small ceremony shortly before the birth of their daughter, an event I learned about through family rather than direct communication. The news affected me less than I had anticipated, perhaps, because I had already done the work of separating my life from theirs, both physically and emotionally. My relationship with my niece remained a more complex question. Through careful conversations with my therapist, I had come to believe that my eventual involvement in her life might be possible and even healthy, but only after establishing clear parameters with her parents and ensuring my own emotional readiness. This possibility existed as a future consideration rather than an immediate obligation. The most unexpected development had been my gradual openness to new relationships. After months of focusing entirely on my own healing, I had begun cautiously accepting invitations from colleagues and meeting new people in my adopted city. These connections remained casual, but each positive interaction helped restore my belief in the possibility of genuine trust and intimacy. Betrayal teaches us about our capacity for resilience, not just our vulnerability to pain, my therapist observed during one of our now monthly sessions. The fact that you're considering new relationships shows remarkable courage and growth. This perspective helped frame my experience not as a defining tragedy, but as a painful chapter in a continuing story. The betrayal had changed me, certainly, but not in the ways Derek and Olivia might have anticipated. Rather than becoming bitter or closed off, I had developed a deeper understanding of myself and clearer boundaries that paradoxically allowed for more authentic connections. On the anniversary of the day I received Olivia's text, I spent the morning hiking one of Seattle's beautiful forest trails alone, reflecting on the distance I had traveled both literally and emotionally. That afternoon, I met friends for lunch, people who knew me only as I was now unburdened by the expectations or assumptions of my past relationships. "You seem different today," one friend commented, "more settled somehow." I realized she was right. The date had arrived without the dreaded anticipation I had expected, its significance acknowledged, but no longer overwhelming. I had not forgotten what happened, would never forget, but the memory no longer carried the power to derail my present or determine my future. That evening, I received an email from Derek, his first direct communication in many months. "I know today might be difficult," he wrote. "I think about what happened every day and about the pain we caused you. I do not expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I understand now what we did in a way I didn't then. If you ever want to talk, I am here." The message was notable for what it didn't contain: no justifications, no requests, no expectations of response. Whether this represented genuine growth or simply a more sophisticated approach to seeking absolution, I couldn't know. What mattered was my own reaction to his words, the calm acknowledgement, rather than reopened wounds. I saved the email without responding, neither rejecting the potential for future communication nor rushing to provide the closure he might be seeking. This middle path, neither complete estrangement nor premature reconciliation, represented the balanced approach I had worked so hard to develop. 2 weeks later, I met someone at a friend's dinner party who intrigued me in a way no one had since Olivia. Our conversation flowed effortlessly for hours, touching on shared interests and values while revealing intriguing differences that invited further exploration. When she suggested meeting for coffee the following weekend, I found myself accepting without the hesitation or fear that had characterized my previous tentative steps toward dating. "I should tell you," I said as the evening ended, "that I'm still processing the end of a significant relationship. I'm in a good place now, but it's something you should know. Thank you for being honest," she replied with a smile that reached her eyes. "We all have histories. What matters is how we carry them forward." Her response, so simple yet profound, captured exactly what I had learned through this painful journey. We all have histories shaped by both our choices and others' actions toward us. What defines us is not what has happened to us, but how we choose to carry those experiences into our future. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the strange path that had led me here. 2 years ago, I had believed I knew exactly how my life would unfold, the certainties of marriage to Olivia and lifelong brotherhood with Derek serving as the foundation for all other plans. The destruction of those certainties had felt like the end of everything that mattered. Yet here I was rebuilding a life that honored my past experiences without being limited by them. The betrayal that had once seemed capable only of destruction had ultimately created space for growth, self-discovery, and new possibilities I could not have imagined in its aftermath. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that forced you to completely rebuild your life? How did you find the strength to move forward, and what unexpected growth came from that painful experience? Share your story in the comments below to help others who might be facing similar challenges right now. If this journey from betrayal to healing resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding resilience in life's most difficult moments. Share this video with someone struggling to see beyond their current pain to remind them that healing is possible even after the deepest wounds. Thank you for listening to my journey from devastation to rebuilding. And remember that sometimes what feels like the end is actually the beginning of something entirely new.